Hello and welcome to Woman Unboxed. I am Chido Victoria, and this is a space for us to reflect on the things that affect women, to unpack the stories we have inherited, and to ask the questions that help us see ourselves and our lives more clearly. Today, I'm going to start with something that might make you a little bit uncomfortable. I want to gently challenge you with a thought. You don't know yourself. I know. You're probably thinking, what? Of course I do, but hear me out. What's your favorite color? Now tell me why. What's your favorite song? Why does it move you? Often, we can't answer the why. We follow routines and reactions without knowing where they come from. If you're like so many women I've spoken to, and like I was, you might feel a constant yearning for something intangible that you can't even name. I believe that void exists because you haven't truly met your authentic, highest self yet. You have been so boxed in by family expectations, cultural norms, and religious teachings that your connection to yourself has grown fuzzy like a radio station that you can't quite tune into. Do you know research suggests that only about 10 to 15% of people are truly self aware? This is quite a low statistic. And even though most of us believe we know ourselves well, it turns out that self awareness isn't just automatic. It's something we have to work on through reflection, curiosity, and questioning what we think we know about ourselves. But here's the good news, you can start right now to reclaim your authentic self. And it begins with getting to know yourself. So, are you ready? Let's dive right in. My own journey to discovering myself didn't start with a beautiful, enlightened moment. It started in the darkest place I've ever been. A few years ago, I reached the lowest point of my life. I was so deep in depression that I gave up the will to live. It shocked everyone because I'd always been the strong one, the eternal optimist, the one who survived everything with a smile. But beneath the surface, childhood traumas and unaddressed patterns were brewing. So, following some poor choices and a series of unfortunate events, eventually I fell flat on my face. I gave up the will to live and I ended up in hospital. Lost my mind for a few days, but thank God I lived. And that's when everything changed. That's when I started to slowly come out of the woods. That was my turning point. I started therapy, I listened to podcasts. I remember the very first podcast that I fell in love with was one by Najwa Zabian, who speaks about healing so beautifully. And she's written several books that are really very good for self discovery, for healing, for turning pain into purpose. I went back to school for psychology. I even discovered how technology like AI and what Deepak Chopra calls digital dharma could help me understand my purpose. I realized that I had spent my whole life being a good girl or a good woman according to a strict church environment, but I wasn't doing it for me. I had to hit rock bottom to realize that I had never actually met the woman living inside of my own skin. In this episode, I want to share how I began to break free through practices like meditation, reflection, and asking hard questions. And I want to invite you to start meeting yourself too, without waiting for a dark night of the soul to hit you first. Let's talk about something we've all experienced, the perfect life facade. You scroll through Instagram or TikTok and you see these curated images of success, especially for African women. The perfect hair, flawless makeup, the glass skin, aspirational travel photos in Dubai or Santorini or wherever, the designer bags, designer shoes, seemingly perfect relationships. Then we start comparing. We start feeling like we're not enough because we don't have those things or we're not living that life. But here's the truth, it's all a facade. Most of it isn't real, it's highlights, not the full story. But it's so easy for us to forget this when we're looking at those reels and asking ourselves what's wrong with us for not having them. For African women, we get these social media images mixed with heavy cultural benchmarks. Things like, when are you getting married? Why don't you have another baby? Why don't you have a baby? Why aren't you a doctor or nurse or accountant or whatever? If you don't check those boxes, society acts like your other contributions don't matter. I've had relatives ask me why I chose marriage over my career or why I did this instead of that. Even when I achieved what others called success, sometimes I would feel empty because chasing external approval, it's a never-ending, unsatisfying cycle. You achieve one thing, and guess what? The goalposts move. You're always reaching for the next thing, the next validation, the next approval. Whose definition of success are you currently living by? Have you ever achieved a goal others admired but only to feel unfulfilled inside? We carry scripts that we didn't even write. In many of our cultures, a woman's worth is tied to her ability to endure hardship silently. We are required to be seen and not heard. I grew up with those messages, not maybe not directly, but in the world around me, I observed these things, and I realized that it takes real courage to step away from the good girl narrative. Now, I'm not saying you should stop being a good person, no, but what's the opposite of a good girl box? It's a woman who is honest. The first step to breaking free is simply recognizing the existence of the box. What rules are you following that never served you or stopped serving you? Where did they come from? Write them down and think about them. As I began exploring who I really am, I rediscovered something I'd found fascinating as a child, and that is Western astrology. Now, I know some people think it's out there or even unchristian, but for me, it's like reading a cosmic weather report. It's just understanding patterns and energies. I'm studying the positions of the heavenly bodies, which were created by the very same God who created us. So I don't know why some people think this is ungodly, but let me just go on. According to my birth chart, I'm a Sagittarius sun and rising and Gemini moon. When I read what that meant, it was a moment where I was like, whoa, this is somebody describing my personality. My Sagittarius energy is all about freedom, adventure, seeking truth and philosophy, learning. And the Gemini moon speaks about my inner self, my soul. It gives me this curious, communicative, and sometimes scattered energy. And having my rising sign in Sagittarius as well, it means that's how I show up in the world. Bold, optimistic, always searching for meaning. Even though I may not appear like this to people, but deep down inside, this resonates because I know this is who I am. I feel that this is who I want to be. It was like finally having words for things that I'd always felt but never understood. Or, as Deborah Silverman puts it, it was a permission slip to be myself. And it wasn't just astrology, I also explored things like human design and the gene keys by Richard Rudd. So, in human design, I'm a manifesting generator, and this means that I have a multi passionate, fast moving energy. I'm designed to respond to life, to follow what lights me up, and do multiple things at the same time. When I learned this, so much of my life made sense. I'd always felt guilty for being too much or for wanting to do 10 things at once. One friend once said that I was all over the place, which made me feel like there was maybe something wrong with me, but that is just how I'm wired. That is me. I'm not here to give you a lecture on these systems, but I want you to know they were eye openers for me. They gave me language for my energy, my patterns, and how I respond to life. Maybe astrology or human design is not your thing. Maybe it's something else like prayer, fasting, therapy, journaling, meditation, talking to elders, exploring your ancestry. The point is, find the tools that help you to see yourself more clearly. And speaking of tools, let's talk about journaling. You know, I've always loved writing in diaries since I was about 8 years old. But I've had a few painful incidents where people have read my journal and confronted me about what I wrote. Can I just say this? A diary or a journal is somebody's sacred space, and it is a major violation of privacy for you to read somebody else's journal. If you ever do violate someone in that way, you don't have any right to confront them about anything you read in there. Studies have shown that journaling is an incredibly important therapeutic tool. Do you know, it helps you to process and understand your thoughts, emotions, experiences. Just the act of writing by hand has this amazing transformative power to help you reconnect with your authentic self and to grow into the person you were meant to be. So if you're not journaling, I encourage you to start. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day, write about your day, what you're feeling, what confuses you, write about your dreams, your fears, any questions that you have. And you don't even need a fancy journal, any notebook will do. Although I do personally love a pretty journal, and I have quite a few of them. And here's another thing, maybe you need to reconnect with your ancestors. Maybe you need to explore traditional African practices. Maybe you just need to know more about your roots and understand yourself better. Don't allow fear, especially religious fear, to stop you from exploring who you are. Now, I want to be really clear about something. I was raised Christian and I am very much still a Christian. In fact, I feel a lot closer to God right now than I have ever done in all my life. I thank my mom for raising me in the church. This gave me a solid foundation that I will never lose, and I developed an amazing relationship with God from an early age. But here's where things shifted for me. Several years ago, I read the book Conversations with God. It's actually a series by Neil Donald Walsh, and suddenly I felt like I had found the Holy Grail. This book helped me to understand God from a completely different perspective than how I had viewed him when I was growing up. I read in the Bible of a God who was a jealous God, vengeful, God of punishment, who, if you do something wrong, you should be sure that God is going to punish you for this. The lake of fire, hell, damnation. Don't get me wrong, of course, I learned also that God is love. This was, of course, the basis of my Christian learnings. But through the book, Conversations with God, I came to understand better the saying that God is love, pure unconditional love, and I finally understood the connection that God wanted me to recognize. I wish everyone, especially Christians, would read this book and allow it to help them see their lives in a different way. Now, I recognize and acknowledge that things like astrology, human design, even books like Conversations with God may seem woo woo or even unchristian, especially from an African perspective, but for me, they were tools that helped me understand myself and even deepen my relationship with God, not distance myself from Him. A couple of years ago, I read Najwa Zabian's book, Welcome Home. And this helped me to understand the importance of self awareness and self love. And she spoke about building a home within yourself. And this helped me to find a safe space within myself. Something beautiful started happening. Creativity just started flowing. I started drawing again, painting, writing, and I even started making dolls' houses and doll furniture again. Yes, I say dolls' houses. That was a childhood passion of mine that I rediscovered. And it wasn't about being good at it, it was about play, healing. Creativity has become a way for me to reconnect with my inner child, to express things I maybe don't have words for, and simply enjoy the process of making something with my hands. You know, human beings are creators, and I want to invite you to just do the same. Try something. Maybe it's art, dancing, crochet, cooking, writing poetry, gardening, or maybe just playing games with your kids. It doesn't matter what it is. Just explore. Because exploring creativity can be deeply therapeutic. It's not about being good, it's about discovering what brings you joy. Ask yourself, what is one thing I've never given myself permission to explore? Maybe today is the day you give yourself that permission. So, what does it mean to live unboxed? It means celebrating individuality and unconventional paths. It means celebrating the woman who chooses to become an entrepreneur over climbing the corporate ladder, or the woman who chooses not to marry, not to have children, not to submit herself to any man. It means replacing I should with I am. These shoulds will suffocate you. They keep you trapped in a box that was never meant for you. I want you to imagine for a moment, what would your life look like if you were truly unboxed, free from comparison and the shoulds? Can you think of a time you chose a path that was right for you, even if others didn't understand? Hold on to that feeling. Celebrate it, because that is you living authentically. But here's the reality we have to face. Imagining that freedom is the spark, but sustaining it is the work. It's one thing to see the box, and it's completely another to step out of it and stay out of it. Because the moment you decide to live authentically, the world is going to try and put you into a new box. It will try to pull you back into the shoulds and the autopilot routines we've talked about. So, how do we move from the vision of an unboxed life to the daily practice of it? How do we stop just dreaming about our worth and start cultivating it so deeply that it becomes unshakable? How do we build resilience that isn't shaken by external opinions or setbacks? We can start with a few actionable steps like daily affirmations and gratitude. Start by affirming your inherent value, not what you do, but for who you are. Try saying, I am worthy just as I am. My worth is not up for debate. I honor my unique path. And then you need to create boundaries to protect your peace. This might mean politely declining requests that drain you, or setting limits on social media that triggers comparison, or maybe muting that family group that always leaves you feeling like you've done something wrong or there's something wrong with you. Every no to others is a yes to yourself. Practice self reflection, whether this is through prayer, meditation, journaling. Just make time to check in with yourself and ask, how am I really feeling? And am I living in alignment with my values? You also need to celebrate small wins. The journey of self discovery is ongoing, so you don't need to wait for a milestone. Celebrate the courage it takes to question and the moments you finally choose yourself. What small daily ritual helps you feel grounded in your worth? Who in your life truly supports your journey to authenticity? Now, here's the honest truth. Cultivating that inner worth is the foundation, but eventually you have to step out of your quiet time and into a world that is designed to keep you in a box. That's where the real work begins. Understanding your worth is one thing, but protecting it against the noise of daily life requires a bit of deprogramming. We have to look at the default settings we've been running on and decide which ones actually belong to us. First, you need to identify the routines you have adopted, the career paths, relationship norms, or habits you follow simply because that's how it's always been done. When did you notice yourself living on autopilot just to make everyone else happy? For me, that was identifying my people pleasing tendencies, realizing that I was making decisions based on what looked good to others, what made them happy, not what felt right to me. I always had this belief that I had to put others before myself, even if that meant never caring for myself. To uncover your true values and passions, you need to ask yourself, what did you love to do as a child before the world told you what you should do? If you had all the money in the world or all the money that you needed and other people's opinions were not factors, what would you do with your life? Audit your influences. Which voices serve your growth? When do you hear God's voice most clearly? And which voices are dimming your light? You also need to be mindful about your consumption. Be intentional. Unfollow accounts on social media that make you feel less than, and choose content that inspires your unboxed self. Because remember, you are what you consume. Then there's the micro rebellion. These are acts of intentional nonconformity, just small acts. Things like wearing something you love that's maybe not appropriate for your age, or that's a bold color that you never go for. Speak up when you would normally just stay quiet. Take a different route to work. Walk instead of taking a taxi, or ride a bike. Try something new just because. What's one small act of nonconformity that you're going to try this week to honor your authentic self? So here's the thing. When you start living authentically, you are going to face resistance, both internally and externally. So external resistance will show up as people criticizing you. They might not understand what you're doing. They might feel threatened by your growth. They might even accuse you of being fake. You'll have moments of doubt, and your inner critic will say things like, "Who do you think you are?" or "You're being selfish." But here's how you can handle it. You need to build resilience against external criticism. Remember, people's opinions are often reflections of their own boxes. When someone criticizes your choices, ask yourself, is this about me, or is this about their own fears? Challenge your own self limiting beliefs. When the inner critic shows up, talk back to it and ask, is this really true, or is this an old story I've been telling myself? Also, you need to find your unboxed community. Connect with like minded individuals who are on similar journeys or who have completed similar journeys, who support and celebrate genuine self expression. You don't have to do this alone. How do you handle criticism or judgment from others when you choose to be different? What helps you silence your inner critic and keep moving forward? So here's something that we all need to understand. Authenticity is not a destination, it is a journey. It's a dynamic, lifelong process of discovery and refinement. You don't arrive at authenticity, you practice it every single day in small ways and in big ways, and that means embracing your imperfections, looking closely, looking into the face of those things, those parts of yourself that you're not proud of. And the beauty of the work is you're going to start working on these parts, celebrating the unique quirks and unpolished aspects that make you genuinely you. It means being gentle with yourself when you slip back into old patterns because you will. It's the easiest thing in the world to do because it is so familiar. But each time you choose yourself, each time you listen to your internal compass and break free from a should, you're reclaiming your soul, your authentic self. So, what does authenticity mean to you today, and how has that changed over time? And how do you celebrate your unique peculiarities and imperfections? Okay, before I leave you today, I want to make sure you have everything you need to actually live what we've talked about. I know that unboxing life is deep, sometimes heavy work, so to help you navigate it, I've created a free resource for you called the Unboxed Discovery Guide. Think of it as your personal roadmap for the week. It has all the journaling prompts we covered, space to audit your influences, and a special section to plan out your micro rebellions. It's my way of making sure you don't have to do this journey alone. You can download your copy right now via the link in the show notes. Grab it, print it out, and let's start reclaiming that space within ourselves. So here we are at the end of this episode, but really, it's just the beginning. The journey of reclaiming your self-worth and detaching from society's narrow expectations, it's ongoing, it's messy, it's beautiful, it's courageous, and I want to invite you to continue this journey with me. As we rediscover ourselves, we often meet our inner child, that part of us that still wants to be seen, heard, and free to play. In our next episode, we're going to dive deeper into how honoring that inner child, especially for us as African women, can help us heal old wounds and grow into who we truly are. But for today, I want to leave you with this thought to carry you through the week. Self-discovery is not about becoming someone new. It's the journey where you travel, but not to find a destination. Rather, you find your way back home to the woman you were always meant to be. Your worth is not up for debate. You are valuable, just as you are, and the world needs you, unboxed, unapologetic. Thank you for being here and for doing this work with me. If this conversation resonated with you, then I invite you to please share it with another person who needs to hear this message. Let's spread the unboxed message together. I'll see you in the next episode. This is Woman Unboxed.